Um, Raider Nation, what is the deal, man? We about to go live for the second time ever on this channel. We're gonna let a couple people come up in here, but I got a very special guest for the channel today, man, for the live. So y'all not gonna want to miss today's conversation. Like I said, we're gonna let some people get up in here, and then after that, man, we're gonna get started. What is the deal, Raider Nation, man? Once again, you tapped into the Raider Rundown. Make sure you tap it on the like and subscribe button. Like I said, it's our second ever live here on the channel, and we got a very special guest in the building. So without further ado, man, let me not waste any more time with it, man. Let's get this intro started, and let's get the show cracking.
As a young guy, I had a dream that someday I would build the finest organization in professional sports.
Raider Nation, what is the deal, man? Today we have a very special guest. We got Kenny King Jr. in the building, man. I appreciate you for coming over here and just spending time with me today, man, for real.
Man. What's good? What's good?
Man, like I said, man, it's our second ever live here on the channel, man. I definitely wanted somebody, to come in here, give us a little juice on the channel, man. I definitely feel like this is going to be a great conversation with us today, man, for real.
No doubt, no doubt. Excited to be here. Shout out to Raider Nation in the chat. Make sure everybody follows, likes, subscribes, sets those notifications. Guys, he's been doing this every week, so make sure you're here.
Factuals, man. If anybody on my channel, man, does not follow this man here, make sure you follow him. And I believe your ad is Kenny King Jr., right? Give me your ad name so they can follow you.
On Twitter, it's at Kenny King _Jr. On here, you can just go at Kenny King Jr. and you can pull up the page. But yeah, follow me.
All right, man. Like I said, man, I'm ready to get the show started, man. So without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get this thing cracking. So, man, I feel like we can't really start anywhere to talk about the Raiders if we don't first talk about your expectations for the team, right? Like, what do you expect for this team for this season? Like, what are you expecting to see? Like, where's your head at as far as the team as an overall?
Yeah, it's funny because every time before season starts, I'm always like, I don't really have much expectations for this team. Like, the Raiders are always going to disappoint me somehow, some way.
Yeah, right.
Once camp hits, I start getting excited again. You start seeing camp passes, you start seeing, the tweets from camp and the battles and stuff that's going on, and you start getting excited about it. Talking to some of the guys on the team, they're fired up. Some of the defensive players are fired up with the addition of Marcus Peters and some of the guys that came in, that were brought in free agency, guys that fit Patrick Graham's system. Last year there was a lot of guys in that system that didn't fit the system, and that's why the defense wasn't that good.
Right.
Offensively on the side of the ball, you hate to see Derek go in the way that he went, but you look at Jimmy and say, okay, it's basically a lateral move, maybe a quarterback that doesn't have as good of a deep ball as Derek, but he has a better knowledge of the system. He's going to do what Josh wants him to do, and so it's going to be more of a uniform system to play out. The question is, Josh Jacobs going to be there? And that really is going to be the biggest thing. Now, do I think Josh is going to be there? Absolutely. Do I want to see Josh out there in camp? I would love to see Josh out there in camp, but at the end of the day, as long as he's there week one, that's all that matters to me. But my expectations is I think this team, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I think that they're going to shock a lot of people that aren't expecting them to do a lot. Because you look at the offense, you still got Devontae, you still got Tay. You have a top 15 offensive line. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo who can distribute the ball well and doesn't make stupid mistakes. And you've got a tight end in Michael Mayer who, if he plays the way he did in college, he's going to be a force. So, I'm excited about this team. I'm more excited than I was before. And I'm I always say cautiously optimistic, but I'm just excited about this team.
Yeah, and I can't lie to you, man. Everything I've heard so far coming out of training camp, especially like you said, now that you're having the players to really gel into the system and they're bringing in the players that they feel are comfortable with them and comfortable with the system, we're now seeing, more competitive training camp. We're now seeing more fiery action, you know what I mean? And all that stuff got me really excited. And you touched on Josh Jacobs, right? And I do want to touch on that with you. If we don't have Josh, right, I'm low-key excited to see what Zamir can do. I kind of, been seeing a couple clips, seeing how he looks, right? He looks like he's got his body into shape after his rookie year, right? He looks like he saw what he had to do for the NFL season and was like, okay, I'm going to bulk up, right? So from him, what do you think we could see from him if he had to assume, that top running back role for a minute, if Josh does not decide to come back?
Well, you saw Zamir in college, and he was an absolute unit. He was a one-man wrecking crew when he was in Georgia. He was able to get those hard yards. He was able to go downfield. He's a guy that can, run in beside the tackles, and he can make plays. Right. He's not somebody who's going to be flashy on the outside, which you don't really need because you still have Brandon Bolden, you've got Amir Abdullah. So you've got those guys that are still there that can make those plays. But if he has to take on that RB1 role, he's going to be a guy that's going to be used, and you can probably give him 25 to 30 carries a game, and he's not going to get worn down. It'll be more of like a Derrick Henry situation where you can just keep running him, and basically wear defenses down with him. That's where he's going to excel. Now, like I said, he's probably not going to be involved as much in the passing game, except maybe as a blocker, but he's going to be somebody who will be utilized definitely in the run game. The running back room is still it's one of those things where the running back room is low. You know,
It is.
You just had Martin that got carted off. He's out for the season. And then you look around the league, you know, the running back situation it's a very weird situation because you got Jonathan Taylor over in Indy who, you know, he wants to get traded because Jim Irsay doesn't want to extend him.
Exactly.
And they just lose Zach Moss. And then you got, you know, up in Buffalo, you got Nyheim Hines who's out, and you know, Buffalo wants to get their money back, and you got Dalvin Cook who's still not signed, you know, so you know, and then you got Josh who's holding out. Saquon just took a 1-year deal. Ezekiel Elliott's still out there somewhere, you know.
Kareem Hunt's still out there.
Kareem Hunt's still out there, exactly. So there's a lot of running backs that are still there or that are in positions, and then you see guys retiring, like Sony Michel retires, you know. So
that was crazy.
Those are the things you look at, like, you know, Josh doesn't have a lot of leverage. He's not going to leave money sitting on the table. I can tell you that.
No,
nobody's going to pull a Le'Veon and leave money sitting on the table because we all saw what happened there. Exactly. But at the same time, you know, with Zamir White stepping up, it does kind of light a fire under Josh's ass. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should get back to practice.
Yeah, and this is something that I've touched on a lot on this channel, and when I've been talking to other regular people, I'm like, what really does hurt running backs is, one, you know, the physicality and you know, the durability of being able to play running back, right? Like, what's your durability? And secondly, it's kind of hard because even if you are a star running back, I don't want to say it's not as difficult to replace a running back as it is another position, right? You can easily find a guy like Zamir, who they drafted, right? Who can he can give you 1,000 yards. You know, he can probably give you 1,000 yards in a whole season. And for a team, you know, look in the NFL in modern times right now, that's good enough right now. You know what I mean? Especially with how people are throwing the ball and things of that nature. So I agree with you. I don't think he has a lot of leverage, but I do think, you know, he's going to be back for week 1 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and we need him back for week 1 because he's a Bronco killer. But
exactly,
you know, the other thing is you have guys like, you know, Brock Purdy and Isaiah Pacheco, who basically kind of changed the game for positions, because it's like, it don't matter where you're drafted. You could be drafted as Mr. Irrelevant. You could be a 7th round pick. And all it matters is if you go out there and play. And Tom Brady set the standard a long time ago with us being a 6th round pick. And now obviously using Tom Brady is an anomaly because you're not going to find a Tom Brady in every single draft. You know, you're not going to find a Pat Mahomes in every single draft. But, you know, running backs are a dime a dozen. And unfortunately, they only have one opportunity to get paid. And if they only get paid, you know, they get that one check, that's it. So they want to get their money. And, you know, this is a time for Josh to get his money. Yeah,
it is. It is. Shout out to my man, Tony, man. What's going on with you, Tony, in the building? Salute to you, brother. What's going on, man? I definitely am picking up what you're putting down, man. I do think he'll be there for week 1. Right now, we're seeing a lot of reports coming out, right? And some of it is having to do with the inconsistencies that Jimmy is facing right now. Me personally, I feel like, you know, he's got to get his rhythm back into the system, right? He's got to get himself back into playing shape as well. He's still recovering from that foot injury. So I'm not really too concerned about where he's at right now, but I'm not expecting super worldwide MVP numbers from Jimmy, but I do expect the offense as a whole to look more efficient, right? I expect them to come out here and look crisper, look like they have a better rhythm. You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Jimmy's not a big numbers guy. And so, I mean, the thing is, you're not going to get a lot of numbers out of Jimmy. Now, you got to remember, Jimmy hasn't been in a football situation since week 5.
Right.
Week 5, he went out, he went down, he started 5-0. Okay, now we can look at his stats through that. And obviously, you know, there's a lot that gets masked with that. But you have Jimmy, who's now in the system. He's missed all of OTAs. He's finally coming back into camp. Of course, he's going to be rusty. What I want to see is him just shake that rust off a little bit, get it out right now, get it out in the preseason, get it out in camp. I'd like to see him under center a couple times just in the preseason, just to get him in game situation. Nothing major, just to get him out there and get him comfortable. But, you know, he's also adjusting to working with a completely new offense. Right. Now, we saw when he came to San Francisco, he immediately had success. And so he's going back into a situation that he's familiar with. I think that he's going to do well. I don't think he's going to put up ridiculous numbers, but I do think that Jimmy will probably have his first 4,000-yard season.
I could see that. I definitely could see that because I would argue that although San Francisco had a lot of weapons, during Jimmy's time in the league, he's never had a receiver like Devontae Adams. So,
Exactly.
this is we're gonna probably see a different version of Jimmy because you have this all around, all-star receiver that can do anything on the field. So at the end of the day, he's never really had that. And Debo and them are good over there, but they're not Devontae, So
I mean, look, Debo's great. Brandon Ayuk is great. George Kittle is phenomenal. But then you look at the Raiders. You got Devontae, you've got Jacoby, you've got Hunter, you've got Michael Mayer, you've got Austin Hooper. Like there's a lot of depth in that offense, and there's a lot of guys that want to go out there and make plays. I think Trey Tucker is going to be another guy who's going to impress.
Now, I'm happy you just said his name because I was just about to touch on him. From everything I'm hearing, I haven't heard not one negative comment about him. And I know like a majority of Raider Nation were a little scratching their heads right at the pick when we picked him. But when we picked him and I really started deep diving into the film, I'll be honest, I didn't really know too much about him. But then when I started deep diving, you're like, okay, he's got some things to his game that are really going to stand out, right? If he gets himself on the field. And from all accounts, we're hearing that. So what do you think about Trey Tucker? What type of role you think he can carve year one?
I think that he's going to be the speed option that we didn't have last year. He's going to be the speed option that we lost in Henry Ruggs. He has the ability to go downfield and make plays. He's fast. He's game fast. There's a difference between being fast and being game fast.
Right.
You got guys like James Jett who are fast, but when you get them in a game, they're only one dimensional. The Raider Way actually put out a really good comparison chart between him and Jacoby Ford. They're very, very similar in the way they play. Same size, same height, close to same speed, same attributes. I can see that, I can see him having that same Jacoby Ford type impact on the Raiders. And so he's not going to put up, number 1, number 2, number 3 yards, but he's going to be the guy that can bust it open and make a big play.
Right, and I'm glad you said that. You just gave me some homework. I'm definitely going to go check that out, give that a read. And that Jacoby Ford comparison is very nice. I feel like he has a sort of toughness to his game as well that's very underrated to him. When you watch him play, he's catching passes over the middle, and he plays bigger than what he is, right? And I feel like he's going to showcase that once he gets on the field this year for sure.
Yeah, I think he's, and I'm excited in the special teams. I love Hunter Renfrow, but I would rather have a guy who's back there and who's a true special teamer, catching punts, catching kicks, who can go up there and take it open, because we haven't had that since Dwayne Harris and Cordarrelle Patterson.
You took the words out of my mouth, and I love Hunter Renfrow, but at the end of the day, I always scratched my head at putting him at punt returner, kick returner. I never really fully understood that move. I don't think he's suited out for that. But speaking of Hunter Renfrow, there were a lot of reports coming out that, before camp, that the Raiders could move off of him and things of that nature. But from everything I'm hearing, it sounds like he's just destroying camp this year. He's come with a new focus, back healthy. I don't expect him to have the year that he did 2 years ago where he had over 1,000 and, he was fully relied upon, because at the end of the day, we had no true number one receiver.
He doesn't need to be.
Right. I don't think he needs to be either. But I do expect him to come out here, and we're going to see flashes of what we missed last year for sure.
Yeah. He dealt with a lot last year. He dealt with the concussions. He dealt with the injuries. He dealt with the fumbles, and he took that and took it into consideration and really worked on that. And he came back better, stronger, better shape, healthier, all the things that you just said, right? He also knows, hey, I don't have to be the guy. I just need to be a guy that can go out there and make things happen. If he can be that third down guy, if he could be third and Renfrow like he has been in the past, that's all that matters. We know that he's good on the goal line situations. We know that he's great and sure-handed on third downs. That's what you want to see. You want to see him. If he, if Hunter Renfrow ends the season with 555 yards and 7 touchdowns, guess what? That's a win.
Because at the end of the day, because what people need to realize is now to this offense, you've added at least 2 other people that can run any route in the route tree. When you talk about Devontae, Jacoby Myers, now you have Hunter Renfrow. These are 3 guys right here that can run any route in the route tree, right? So at the end of the day, somebody's going to be single covered, and he's definitely going to get his chances this year, I believe, to really showcase what he can do.
Yeah, it's a matchup nightmare. And then the talks about moving him. Look, all his money's already guaranteed.
Yeah.
After June 1st, it was all guaranteed. So if you're going to move him, you're going to take a cap hit, and two, you better get something good out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Raiders Fan Radio, what's going on with you, brother? How y'all doing today, man? Appreciate y'all. Man, I'm loving the conversation right now. I do want to ask you, is there anything out of training camp that you have heard that has maybe surprised you in a good way, in a negative way, something that you've heard that you've been like, okay, yeah, like this gives me hope for this team going into this next season?
The one thing that I'm going to pinpoint is probably Jimmy's attitude and Jimmy's demeanor, and Max Crosby saying that Jimmy goes out there and talks shit in the weight room. He talks shit on the field. There was reports that him and Max were going back and forth the other day. And so that's what I like to see is, the quarterback getting after it, somebody getting excited, getting in somebody's face, and he's not afraid to shy away from it. He's going to talk a lot of shit, and hopefully he backs it up.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people saying, this could be a Rich Gannon situation where, he comes in as the veteran and basically just turns things around because he fits the system exactly.
I've thought that.
Yeah. Or I've seen, the flip side where it could be a Josh McCown. And, you know what happens with Josh McCown.
Exactly.
There's, I think Matt Fallon said it best where there's no in between. It's either going to be Gannon or McCown. And hopefully it is on that Gannon side. He's got all the tools around him that he needs. He's got an offensive line that can protect him. We just need to see Jimmy stay healthy, and I think that he can facilitate this offense.
Yeah, I really agree. And there was a lot of people in the media spectrum who heard that story between Max and Jimmy and tried to blow it up out of proportion, right?
With it. Yeah.
But like I said, if you're a real Raiders fan, that should put a smile on your face. That put a smile on my face because when I heard that Max ran laps and now you understand that Max had to run because he went off sides or whatever the case may be, right? But at the end of the day, just to hear the chirping, the competitiveness back and forth, it's something that I haven't heard from a Raiders camp and I don't know how long,
Yeah. As a former defensive lineman, it fires me up, somebody who would go out there and get after it and go after the guys. This is when you do it. Somebody got mad at me because I tweeted something. It's like, it's not about fighting your own team. It's about talking shit and getting ready for it, getting out there and getting after it, getting fired up. That's what you want to see. You want to see them get back to the Raider way, getting back to what the Raiders used to do. Because I'll tell you right now, back in the day, Jim Plunkett, Rich Gannon, those guys would be sitting there talking shit to everybody. And they back it up. And that's what you want to continue to see. So I'm fired up about it.
And yes, that if you've played any type of sports or whatever the case, especially in football, right? This is the time right here where I just got to say it plain and frank, where you got to test your teammates gangster. You got to see what they have. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I got to know that if we go to war and somebody else is doing this to you, we going to be able to stand 10 toes down with each other. You know what I mean? Exactly. So at the end of the day, that respect is being given right now. And I feel like once the bullets start flying and another jersey's on the other side, they're going to go to war for each other. That's exactly what we need, though.
Yeah. Max is down with it, so
yeah,
about him.
yeah. And seeing that Netflix, I'm sure you saw the Netflix special, the QB, where he was going at Patrick Mahomes. So seeing that, I know we got a leader on this defense, right? But to touch on the defense, is there a unit that you're excited to see? Like for me, for example, the secondary, I feel like they're going to be very, very improved this year. Like we're going to see a very improved secondary as a whole. Is there anything else on, other positions that you see you're excited about?
I'm excited about the secondary. I think that Marcus Peters is going to bring a lot. Nate Hobbs coming back off an injury. He's going to do a lot.
Right.
Jacorian Bennett's a guy I'm really excited to see out there on the field.
Yes.
I can't wait to see him. Yes. I can't wait to see Chris Smith out there. I want to see, an improved Trayvon Merrick. But the position that I'm most excited about is our edge rushers. Max coming in. Max has this mindset where I love what he said the other day. He said every year he wants to get 1% better in something. So, he's trying to get better every single year. He's was number 17th on the NFL 100. He wants to be number one. He wants to be the best defensive player in this league. And I feel that he will. He hasn't reached his peak yet. You look at Chandler Jones, who worked his ass off in the offseason, got faster.
He looks good. He looks good.
He says he feels better. He says he's ready to, get back to his form. Tyree Wilson, I'm excited to see what he does because I've watched film on him. Dude's a dog. Now, hopefully he's healthy when he comes in. but dude's a dog. There's depth at that pass rushing situation where we've got some guys that can get after it, and this is a unit that should have 30 sacks this season.
Right. Okay. And that's something. Look, and that's something that we really have been needing. And like I've been saying, if the D-line unit gets better, then we're going to see every unit of the defense get better. That's just like how it works in the NFL. And to touch on Tyree, right? I know they're taking the slow approach with him, and I'd rather them do that, especially because he has a foot injury. He's a big dude. You know what I mean? And having a big guy and having a foot injury, like that's a recipe for disaster long term. So you don't want to do nothing with that. But I'm not expecting a super 10 sack season this year. Like if he can give me somewhere around 6.5, maybe 7, I'll be all right. But I just want to see, the physical prowess that he has, really. I just want to see like the tools show themselves. What do you think that he can do this year?
I think that he's probably, if he plays the full season, I think he can have a 5 to 7 sack season. I think that, Max is going to make a lot of opportunities for him. And I think vice versa, he's going to make a lot of opportunities for Max. I'm excited for those passing downs where, you could potentially have him, Chandler, and Max out there.
Yeah.
Where, to pick your poison, who are you going to double team?
Right.
Because now that takes another player. If you have to pull the tight end to stay back and block, or if you have to pull a running back to stay back and block, then it makes the job easier for our secondary.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the linebacking core because I feel like that's the weakest unit, and the Raiders have had the weakest linebacking core for years.
Yeah.
I've been around for 40 years. The Raiders haven't had a good linebacking core for at least 20 of those 40 years, and so.
I've been a Raider fan all my life, and I've never seen a good Raider linebacking core at all.
Yeah, so, but if you have a good defensive line and if you have a solid secondary, that makes a decent linebacking core look good.
Right.
And so, if you can get after it up front, create pressures, make the quarterback throw it faster, then the DBs are going to have an easier job. The linebackers are going to have an easier job. And I think that these guys are going to go out there and put it all together. So I'm excited about that. I think, like I said, Tyree, 5 to 7 sacks. I see Chandler Jones getting back to 10. And I think Max is gonna win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yeah, because he had 12 last year. I definitely expect him to up and increase that. Definitely Chandler. And although I personally don't think Chandler played that bad last year, as many people would like to, make it seem, I feel like he just didn't get the sack numbers, right? But at the end of the day, he played the run very well last year. He played the run very well. Towards the end of the year, we saw him picking up steam. We saw him starting to get the pressures, starting to get home. So if he can start the year off how he ended the year last year, we got something cooking for sure on that D-line.
You just got to keep that momentum.
Exactly. Now, you touched on the linebacker unit, and I was going to touch on that. And I've been saying it for a minute, I think that the linebacker unit is the most worrisome unit of the defense right now. We hear that like Jalen Smith is going to come in for a workout, and maybe that's a possibility. But at the end of the day, that still doesn't move the needle for me personally as far as the linebacker unit. And my concern really is, although I think Diablo could take a step, my concern with him is his injury factor. You know what I mean? He hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy throughout the whole season, right, when counted upon. So what do you think he can do if he does stay healthy? You know what I mean? Do you think he's in line for a breakout season like everybody's saying?
I think he could, but, the question is, can he stay healthy? That's the biggest thing. He's got all the tools. He's got the attributes. He has, he's got the speed. He's got the physicality. He's got the strength. The question is, can he stay on the field? If he can stay on the field, he's going to be a force. He'll be a solid player. He's not going to be, he's not going to be an NFL top 100. He's not going to be, a first team, all pro. He's not going to be a second team all pro. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl player probably, but he's going to be a solid player where you can have him out there and he's going to be reliable. And that's what you need. Is you want somebody who's reliable. I don't care if you're an all pro, just be reliable.
Exactly.
At that point, just be reliable. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Somebody who can go in there, and if he's going to be the guy that's on Kelsey, then he's going to be the guy that's on Kelsey. Me personally, I'd rather see Hobbs on Kelsey, but let's see what Patrick Graham puts out there. Exactly.
And I feel like there's going to be a lot of mix and matching when it comes to a situation like that. I feel like somebody like Isaiah Palomau is gonna show himself,
Yes.
this year when it comes to covering tight ends. I feel like that might be his little special role right there.
He's getting a lot of love right now.
He is, and
He's getting a lot of love.
He had an interception in camp, so we're
Yeah.
seeing him make plays, and it's good to see that the two people that have had the interceptions that I've heard, Sam Webb, Isaiah Palomau, these are undrafted guys that we're getting
Luke
to make plays.
Luke Masterson's having a good camp. He had a good last part of the season when he came in. Those are the guys you want to see, and that's
Exactly.
where it comes down to. Dave Ziegler seems to be doing a pretty good job. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's the best yet, but let's see how this draft class comes out, because on paper they look good.
Yeah, it's funny you touch on that with the Josh McDaniels and the Dave Ziegler thing. Although a lot of people may not agree with what they're doing right now as far as the moves they're making, I've said, stated I don't really have a problem with it, only because I haven't seen any successful other ways that have happened in the past, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we have to give them at least a chance to have the vision play out, right? And let's see what they're doing. But from all accounts that I'm hearing, from year 1 to year 2, we're already seeing more competitiveness, and we're already seeing people get the scheme, playing more loose, playing more free. And now we get to see what the scheme really looks like when they're not thinking, right? And when they're just playing. Yeah. And I feel like, if he comes out here and I'm not going to say we win the Super Bowl. If we do, then hey, I'll be happy to be wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. But you feel me? At the end of the day, though, I'm like, I do see us, if everything clicks in the lines, I see us going 10-7. If that's the playoffs, that's the playoffs. But, I think that, Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are just building something slow for the future. How do you feel about how they've done so far and, the job that they've done?
I was really down on McDaniels last season just because of, everything that was happening, the second half woes and, just, the way that things went down. I was not happy. Right. But, you hit the nail on the head. You need a fresh start. You need a change. I think that Derek Carr going to the Saints is best for both of them. I think it's good for the Raiders because the Raiders needed a change. And I think it's great for the Saints because I think he's going to have a ton of success down there. I think that Jimmy coming in, while it's not a sexy signing, it's a signing that makes sense, right? We all wanted to draft a quarterback. I still wanted to draft a quarterback. I wanted CJ Stroud. Yeah. But next year's quarterback class is a deep class. And the Raiders have the potential to get a franchise quarterback in the next draft. Or, who knows, Aiden O'Connell may be the next coming, so, I'm going to trust the process. Gruden came in and pissed a lot of people off, and it took him, 3 years to kind of get to where this team was firing all cylinders. And everybody talks about, we blew up a playoff team. Look, we had 7 one-score games that we won. Last year we had 7 one-score games that we lost. You can't have one-score games and expect to be a Super Bowl contender. You have to have convincing wins. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, as much as I hate to say it, they have convincing wins. Yeah. And so you need to have convincing wins in order to be a Super Bowl team. I think that you're going to start seeing these convincing wins start to stack up because players are buying into what they're selling.
And that's exactly what we need to get to real quick. Shout out my boy Anthony, man, big Palomau fan, man. I think he's in line for big things this year. Yeah. But to getting back to your point, we've already seen year 1 in this system what it could be when it's working and everybody's on the same page, right? Mm-hmm. We are even though we were blowing leads and that's inexcusable, you still, as a player, as the coaching staff, even as fans, can admit when it's on point and when everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and everybody's jobs are right, it looks good, right? It looked good last year. Now, are there certain things that Josh McDaniels did last year that he needs to work on? Yes. I feel like clock management, things of that nature, right, on the coaching side, he needs to get better at. But, it can't just be all on McDaniels as well, right? Players have to go out and play some of these games. Now, I think now that with a second year under the belt and they've seen what it can be, what success can look like, I mean, defense and offense. There were times the defense were holding people scoreless in halves. And you were like, okay, they look pretty. They look like they know what they're doing. They look good. Mm-hmm. And then it collapses. But I feel like, like you said, it's going to start getting convincing, but I feel like we just have to be patient, give him a little more time.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that, makes it a little bit easier to give him time is that Mark Davis has given his full support to Josh McDaniels and to Dave Ziegler. So, it's, you can have the media talking about hot seat all you want, but when you have your owner saying, look, I believe in you, I trust this, I trust the process, I follow the vision, that gives you the ability to go out there and coach. You don't have to worry about, going out there and coaching for your job. You're just going out there to coach. And that's what you want. That's what you want from your coach, is somebody who can go out there and just coach the damn game. Because when you're sitting there, if you're at a job and you got to write up, or you're sitting there and you're worried about, oh man, if I do this wrong, I'm going to get fired. If I come in late one more time, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to get written up. Like you're not performing at your job. When you're relaxed and you're feeling good, you're like, hey, I know I got this. I'm good. You are more relaxed and you're going to be more successful. And I think that's where we're going to see some success out of Josh McDaniels. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
I completely agree. And, of course, if he comes out here and we lay an egg and we're trash, or, we're going to come out here and we're going to say what we're supposed to say, that, something needs to happen, or a change needs to be made. But at the end of the day, like we said, we had 6 wins last year. If we can get better than that, you know what I mean? And we're at least showing growth in areas, I'm okay with it. Because I know at the end of the day, we're trending in the right direction, right? That's all I want. But is there a certain player, is there a certain coach this year that you got your eye on heavily this year, where you're like, okay, like this year, I need you to perform this year?
I'm trying to think of, the guy who needs to perform this year is Trayvon Merrick. The Raiders, I was really high on him when the Raiders drafted him. I think that he had a good rookie season. Last year, he hit that sophomore slump. I know that he kind of, he didn't take things as seriously. He was kind of, hanging out with Abram and may have gotten caught up with that. But I think that this year, he's been kicking it with Max a lot. He's been kicking it with Hobbs a lot. These guys have been going out there and training together. I think that this is going to be a season where it's a make or break for him. I think that this is a situation where he can really go out there, and him with Marcus Epps can put together a nice safety tandem, which the Raiders haven't had in a long time as well. And so I got my eye on him. I'm watching him this year. I want to see what he can do, and I need him to have a big jump.
I've been talking about Trayvon Merrick at length. It's like we on the same brainwave. I've talked about him at length on my channel, because I said, like, it's like we drafted him expecting a certain jump for that to be made, right? And nobody's going to sit here and say he's going to be Charles Woodson or anything. But at the end of the day, we expected him to be out here and be a little bit more playmaker, like, and we haven't seen that as of right now. But from everything we've heard coming out of camp, him and Epps have good communication, things of that nature. But like you said, this is a make or break year, because you got guys like Chris Smith waiting in the wing. You know what I mean? You never know who else the Raiders might add if they feel like they can get better at a position. They've already shown they'll get better at a position if they feel like they need to. So at the end of the day, I think that is a player that if he does make that leap, it's going to make our defense exponentially better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just makes everybody's job easier.
Yeah.
I think that like you said, we need to see him make some plays. And we've got some ball hawks back there. You got Marcus Peters who can get after it. Marcus Epps who can get after it. Chris Smith is a dog. He like I said, he's a guy that will not be afraid to hit you across the middle and knock your helmet off. And so, you've got a good mix of physicality, and you also have a good mix of speed and ball hawks. So I expect to see more turnovers. I expect to see more sacks. I expect this defense to actually be a decent defensive unit. Yeah,
I really do. I don't, not top 5, top 10, but I do see we've been almost bottom 32, for I don't know how many years.
You go 15 to 25, and it's an improvement.
Oh my God. Hey, if I see anything in the 20s, low 20s, I will jump for joy at that point, because I haven't seen that in I don't know how long. And that's something that I feel like, we're getting to, because we have the pieces in place. But this is a player that I want to ask you about for you being a former D lineman. I want to get your opinion on him. Byron Young, right? And this is a pick that most Raider Nation did scratch their heads at too, right? And at the end of the day, we didn't really know a lot about him. What can we expect from him this year? Like, what can we see him do?
So I actually liked the pick. Obviously we want a defensive tackle who can rush the quarterback, but we also want a run stopper, and that's what he does well. He's a great run stopper. He basically fills that role that we lost with Jonathan Hankins. And you've got Jerry Tillery, who's right on the other side of him, who can get after the quarterback, and we've seen it. Right. So I think adding him, Byron Young's a big guy. He can plug up the A gap. He's a guy who's going to be able to get in there and handle that run. And you need that in this league. You need that in this division because there's some shifty running backs in this division. So. Yeah. I'm excited for when he's healthy to be out there because he is a big body. He's going to take up two guys. He's going to be able to force that double team and make it open for, Tillery or, Max or Tyree or Chandler to come through. So Byron, I hope he is as advertised. I just want to see him out there on the field, but he can play. He can play the ball. And he can get after the quarterback a little bit, but he's not going to be that pass rush specialist that you see with Jerry Tillery. Right.
And I've always said that, especially now, our edge rushers and our edges are very good. I feel like, we're set there. We got Chandler, we got Tyree now, and now you got Crosby. But it's always been our interior pressure that's been the problem, right? We haven't been able to get no push up the middle, and that's why guys like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes are able to sit there and pat the ball for 10 seconds and then get it out of their hands, right? So at the end of the day, I feel like we need that interior push to come. A guy that we haven't really heard a lot about, Neil Farrell Jr. And they just put the pads on, but I haven't heard too much about him. What do we expect from him?
I think this is going to be another year. I mean, this is another situation where this is a make or break year because we've seen that this staff, they're not going to sit there and waste their time. They're not going to sugarcoat things, and they're not going to give guys a lot of opportunities. I know that Farrell was kind of one of those guys that was, he was a healthy scratch a lot last year.
Exactly.
And so, they basically made an example out of him. And if he doesn't get it together, he may not make it through camp, to be honest.
See, and that's the thing that scares me, and although Ziegler was working with a lot of late round picks last year because of the trade with Devontae, at the end of the day, right, we were looking at him. I was looking at him as that Jonathan Hankins replacement, right? Somebody who could come in now that you get rid of an older Hankins. You now bring in Neil Farrell, and he can do that. But we haven't seen him, one, get on the field because he's either been injured or whatever the healthy scratch stuff has been, or like two, when he has been in there, he hasn't flashed. And if he doesn't flash, that's something that's going to scare me now for the Raiders interior going forward. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, because think about it. You've got Dylan Parham on the other side of the ball who is getting a ton of praise.
Right.
And who basically, he had his hiccups last season. He's getting a ton of praise now. Farrell, on the other hand, wasn't getting praise last year, isn't getting praise this year. Nobody's really talking about him. And that worries me because that means that you're one of the guys on the outskirts. That means that you're one of the guys that are on the outside looking in.
Exactly.
And, could Neil Farrell be another Eddie Vanderdoes? Or could he be that guy that steps into that Jonathan Hankins role? I don't know. And I can tell you right now that as soon as Byron Young comes out on the field, that's where we're going to see who's going to be the guy. It's either going to be him or it's going to be Farrell. And, me personally, I got my money on Young.
Right. And goddamn, you took me back with that Eddie Vanderdoes shit. That was, oh my God.
I was just watching the video of Breston Buckner talking about I love y'all, but I hate your football. And they pan right to Eddie Vanderdoes sitting there chewing on his pen. And I was like, God, I hated that.
Oh my gosh, bro. There's so many draft picks you could point out for this Raiders team that just disgust you. Like, and you could just go over the years and it makes your stomach turn. But I want to stay on the D lineman topic, right? Because we're talking about Neil Farrell. We're talking about, Byron Young. And I think when he does get on the field, he can show himself. There's also a guy that they also drafted this year, next to Jade Silvera. I feel like if Neil Farrell does not get it together, that's a guy that could come in here and probably slide into that role. What do you think about him when the Raiders drafted him? What was your overall thought process on him?
I didn't know a whole lot about him. I still haven't seen a whole lot on him, but he's a guy that can be a wild card. I think that he's a guy that, obviously, when you draft players, you want to keep every draft pick. You want to keep everybody that you have. You don't want to get rid of draft picks. But you got to see him with the pads on, because look, I've seen guys in practice when you're in shorts and helmets and they look like All-Americans.
Right.
And then as soon as you get the pads on, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. And so you want to see what he can do with the pads on. I really want to see, these next couple weeks in training, in training camp, in the preseason. I want to see how he gets after, because I know he's going to get a lot of looks, especially with Byron Young out. So seeing him and Farrell out there, you're going to get Allison Cooch's husband, Isaac Rochelle, who's going to be out there, and he's going to be, he's going to be playing for a role as well. So those are all guys that you want to be able to see get out there and get after it. But, I know that they like him. I know that he's somebody who they're high on. And so I think he's going to get a lot of looks, and I think he could edge Farrell out if Farrell doesn't get together.
Yeah, and I honestly think, this next coming week with the 49ers coming in and we're doing that live joint practice, that we're going to see, the real nature of this team. We're going to see who's going to make it, who's going to really be down to the 53-man roster, things of that nature. So I want to ask you this, now that the 49ers are coming in, right? What I'm most excited to see next week is our offensive line go against this defensive line. Now, we saw it against, last year with Jarrett Stidham, we saw it, and they didn't do too bad last year. Except for that one last play with Nick Bosa hitting Jarrett Stidham's arm. We know Colton gave that up. But at the end of the day, right, I don't think they were too bad against this D-line last year. Now, I think when they do this joint practice, now we're going to see how much better our offensive line has got. Is there any position group that you're looking at to go against the 49ers that you're like, oh, I can't wait to see this matchup, see what they look like?
The offensive line, defensive line, I think that those are two that you want to see. Seeing Max against Trent Williams, I think that's going to be exciting to see. Seeing Nick Bosa against Colton Miller, I think that iron sharpens iron. You're going to have these guys that, Jermaine goes against Max every day. Colton goes against Chandler every day. Nick's going to be able to go against these guys now. And Jermaine, I think, guy that I'm looking at is Jermaine Illuminor. He's somebody who really came into his own last season. He stepped up in a big way. Another guy who I got question marks around is Brandon Parker. Is Brandon Parker is he going to finally just make that little jump? No, because it's right. Every season he gets a little bit better, but I don't know. I like Adam Plant. They really like Adam Plant. The players love him, the coaches love him. Everybody's high on him. But I also want to see the Niners receivers versus the Raiders DBs, and seeing Debo versus Marcus, and Ja'Cory Bennett get out there against Ayuk, and Hobbs getting after it, and all that. So those are going to be the two that I'm watching, are the linemen and the receivers and DBs. Yeah,
for sure. To touch on Adam Plant, we were hearing a lot about him. Haven't really heard too much, for the past 2 days when the pads have come on. But, they talked about him at length. Chandler Jones seems to love him, So, and what is he doing specifically that's really, letting his teammates show that love towards him?
I think that one, he's coachable. He's coachable. He goes out there, he listens, he asks questions. He goes out there to learn. He stays after practice. He's working with the guys. He's finding the best players on the team and working with them. And that goes a long way. If you as an athlete, if you want to get better, you only get better by going with the best people. And so, exactly. He's not shying away from the challenges. He's taking advantage of every opportunity. He's a local kid. He just has a love of the game that makes him likable. It's one of those things where it's like, if this was a Hard Knock season, he would be one of the features.
Oh, okay.
He's that guy that just everybody just gravitates to, and they enjoy being around. And he's him, his dad, I follow me and his dad talk on social media. His dad's a great dude, great family. He's just a guy that, like I said, is extremely likable, and some, players like him, coaches like him. I think that he's going to be somebody who's kind of that fan favorite.
Man, and I'm rooting for him to make the roster, and although there's somebody else on the roster that I just never understood why he does not get more playing time, and that's Malcolm Kuntz, right? We see him for the past 3 seasons, and we've seen he's had some ability, but he hasn't been able to get on the field. Do you have an idea why that is, or do you have a thought why that is?
I don't know, because when he's on the field, he makes plays.
Exactly.
The only thing that I can think of is it's got to be the work ethic. There has to be something with the work ethic, and I don't know because I'm not there. I'm not at practice every day. I'm not in the building. I can't say that for sure.
Right.
But that would be my guess. I mean, generally, if somebody is good and they're not on the field, it's generally because they're doing something wrong. They're either not going to meetings, they're not going to practice, they're not working in practice. So I don't know.
Right. And every time, like you said, every time he's on the field, he ends up making plays. So it's kind of, head scratching that we don't really see more of him. But at the end of the day, it seems like they're just building the D line. So he looks like he might be the odd man out come, cut day. And we might see him, maybe find another team. But I do want to touch on this. I just want to get personal real quick to end it off. We got a couple things. So how was it like really watching your dad in the league? Like, how was that experience?
It was cool. I was young, I was little,
Right.
but I was in the locker room, as a baby, as a little kid, walking around, being there on the sidelines, being at games, being in the field, being in Mr. Davis's office, all those cool things, right?
Right.
But it was cool, when I was a kid, the Raiders had already moved to Los Angeles, so basically, my parents were divorced. They divorced when I was 2. I would fly down. With a flight attendant sitting next to me, and they would take me, and my dad would be right there at the terminal to pick you up, because that's back when you could be at the terminal to pick somebody up. And then we'd have like a little set schedule. So Saturday I'd go to practice with them. Sunday I'd go to the games with them, and then Monday we go to Disneyland. And that's basically what our weekends consisted of. It was super cool just being around those guys, and now being an adult and being able to hang out with all the guys and listen to the stories and share some drinks and share some laughs with these guys and just being around them. It's a great experience. And it's allowed me to kind of build my platform, on social media and writing and creating my podcasts and doing those things, and building a relationship with, this team and building a relationship, with the organization and the people that I've met. So it's translated into kind of a cool career where it's all basically come full circle now.
Man, and that's that's beautiful to hear. It's beautiful to see, man. I definitely know it was definitely fun going to them LA Raider games for sure. Yeah. My pops definitely has his stories of seeing Bo Jackson and things like that at the LA Raider game. So I'm definitely sure that you had some memories. But do you have a favorite memory that you would say that you was like, oh, this stamped me down to be a Raiders fan, and this right here like is why I love this team?
I don't necessarily have one that stamped it down for me, because I grew into, I was 1 year old when they won Super Bowl 18. So I was at the game. I was in my mom's arms, at that game. So I mean, I could say that, but I don't remember the game.
Right.
But at least I can say I saw my team.
You was there.
Something the Charger fans can't ever say.
Exactly.
But honestly, for me, it was more of like the games later as I got older. I went to the AFC Championship with my mom when we lost, or not the AFC. No, it's the divisional round when we lost to the Ravens. But that was like one of the only games that I remember going to with my mom. And so, I had that. That was one that I remember. Being at, the Raiders, Derek Carr's first win as a Raider, You know, when C.O. Moore and Khalil Mack are back there dancing 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You know, being at the Heart Attack KC game where it took three scores with no time left. You know, being at that game. You know, being at the last game in Oakland when on Christmas Eve where Dwayne Harris runs back 99-yard touchdown for the punt. You know, so those are the game situations. But really, what cements it is the camaraderie between Raider fans. You know, anybody that's ever been to Oakland, anybody that's ever been to a tailgate knows that you could walk up to any tailgate. You're wearing a Raiders jersey. People are going to give you love. They're going to give you, you're going to pour you a drink. They're going to offer you some tri-tip, whatever. And you get that still in Vegas. I mean, I'll be in Vegas and I'll be walking through and somebody will be out there handing a shot out there. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay.
It's got that old Raider feel, man. Raider feel.
And so it's great to see that translate. And I think that, this fan base is one of the reasons why a lot of people, are Raider fans, because let's face it, the Raiders haven't been good in over 2 decades.
Right.
The reason why people stay is because of their love of this team and the camaraderie between the people, the fans of this team.
Right. And like I tell everybody, I'm 24 right now, right? I'm about to be 25 this year. I've seen 2 good Raider seasons in my entire lifetime. All right. So, and then people ask me, my friends ask me, how are you still a Raiders fan? And I'm like, if you are in it, you know what I mean? And most of us are in it from birth. And if you're not in it, you just don't understand the love that the fans have for this team. Like, and I explain to my friends who are other teams, fans of other teams, I'm like, understand, if the Raiders win the Super Bowl or in the Super Bowl or competitive, you're going to see Raider apparel everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. This is one of the most popular teams, the most popular colors you can wear. Like, it's just inevitable. But I feel like this team is on the right direction, and we're slowly but surely getting back to that old Raider way for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, the NFL is better when the Raiders are winning.
Yep.
When the Raiders are good, the NFL is better because, like you said, you will see those fans everywhere, and you'll start to see Allegiant Stadium not have 1 million red jerseys. You're going to start seeing Allegiant Stadium being blacked out again.
All black.
People talk about they wouldn't do this in Oakland. Well, look, one, nobody wants to come to Oakland, and wear an opposing team's jersey. 2, nobody wants a vacation in Oakland. People want a vacation in Vegas. Yeah. Now, when you start winning, when the Raiders start winning, the fans are going to start showing out. You're going to have some of those people that are going to be like, you know what, I'll pay to go to this game. I'll fly out to Vegas. I'll do that. You're going to see more people walking down the streets in Raiders gear. You're going to see people in other cities, because that's the crazy thing. I'll go to other cities and I run into a Raiders fan everywhere I go. I was in Cancun. Yeah. I was in Cancun in the airport, and dude was like, hey, I'm like, holy, Raider fans everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's what I'm saying. Raider Nation is everywhere, and that's why we're Raider Nation. So the NFL is better when the Raiders are winning. So the Raiders just need to just win, baby.
I completely agree. I just think, it's one of those situations. They just make the league, they just make everything look better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. I think that, I honestly think that Vegas is getting geared up and it's set up for the Raiders to be good. We're already seeing all the other teams in the city, being good and winning championships. We're seeing other teams in that city winning championships. And they're talking about bringing an NBA team to Vegas.
Yeah.
Now, if the Raiders begin to make that ascension to being a competitive team, every year, now you're starting to look at the market expand even more. And I think that's exactly what the NFL wants too.
Yeah. I mean, look, you got the Golden Knights who just won. You got my Aces who won last year. They're going to win again this year.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
They're not because they're nice. They're nice.
The Aces may not lose another game.
Yeah, bro.
They got one more test. They got one more test this Sunday against New York. And if they get past New York, then I'm gonna tell you right now, the Aces are gonna win another championship.
Okay.
And Asia's gonna win another MVP. So, you need the Raiders to win because now the pressure's on. And
exactly.
So, and Mark Davis knows that.
Exactly. And nobody else wants his team to be as good as Mark Davis wants his team to be good.
He grew up a Raider fan. He didn't grow up, he grew up as a fan. He grew up idolizing these players.
Exactly.
And so, You know, he grew up a fan just like we did. He just happened to be the son of the owner.
Yeah.
But he's a Raider fan first. And so
Now,
he wants this team to win.
And I feel like, you know, he doesn't have the natural football instincts that Al had, that his dad had. You know, I feel like,
Right.
you know, Al was a little more, Al was better at the football side of things. You know what I mean? But I feel like Mark is better at the business side of things.
Mark
and although,
understands business.
Exactly. He swung and missed a couple times. But at the end of the day, you got to understand as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, you're going to swing and miss a couple times. You're going to take a couple losses before you get the win. You know what I mean? And I commend an owner. I commend him for trying. You feel what I'm saying? Like at least trying to find the right combination.
Look, I would rather have a Mark Davis than a Jim Irsay or a Jerry Jones or
there you go.
a Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder.
Mark cares. Mark cares. He cares about the people. He cares about the fans. He cares about, you know, the business of it. You know, and that all, you know, I know that you probably want to get done with this soon, but I'll say one thing. The Raiders organization is one of the best organizations for the alumni. They take care of their alumni. I mean, the things that Al Davis did for people that people didn't know about, you know, sending out San Lyle Alcedo to a special hospital. You know, when Carol was sick, when she was younger, he stayed with her in the hospital the whole time, like never left her side. You know, taking care of players, you know, with financial needs and not saying anything about it. You know, putting players on the payroll, bringing guys in, taking care of that, flying guys out. And Mark continues that. Mark continues that tradition. The alumni weekend is one of the best weekends in professional sports. The only team that I've seen treat the alumni as well as the Raiders do is the 49ers. And that's because of the DeBartolos and Jed York, because who were they friends with? Al Davis. Al Davis is the one that put them on to get Eddie DeBartolo to buy the Niners. So you know, they were boys, and so that reciprocation is there, and so that's why you see it with Raider Nation. They take care of their alumni, whether it's a guy like Warren Sapp or Randy Moss, who, you know, we don't claim them, you know, to a guy like my dad or Jim Plunkett or Charles Woodson. That's why these players keep coming back. That's why everybody keeps coming back, because they're well taken care of. And they know that they're actually loved by Raider Nation. And
you know, that's hit right on the head, man. I hope one day, you know, in my professional career, it could take me to go to something like that, you know, to the alumni weekend. But whenever I see that, and you see the players of, you know, today's teams talking to the players of old teams, you know, it brings a smile to your face, because it's like the organization wants the players that get drafted into the team now to know the history. They want everybody to be integrated into the history. So you take a certain pride in wearing that jersey. Just like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, people like to make fun of us fans, like, oh, how are you so passionate about the team? You don't play. But at the end of the day, like, we're passionate. I mean, we love this team. We don't get a dollar from this team. You know what I mean? We spend money on the team. But at the end of the day, all of us, like, if we could bleed silver and black, we would. So at the end of the day, it's like, you know, having that from the players and the organization itself only strengthens all that to me, you know, for everybody.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
So, I really appreciate you coming in here, really chopping it up with me today, man. I know you didn't really have to, but at the end of the day, man, I appreciate you for coming over here and chopping it up with me today, for real.
No, I appreciate you having me on. And anytime you want to have me on, just hit me up.
Oh, of course, man. If there's anything you want to shout out your own channels, your podcast, to my followers, whatever you got, you know, let it be known. Talk your shit.
Yeah, we got the Real Talk podcast. Just brought in the Raider Way, so we're doing every Thursday as well. So you guys can tune in with us at 6, and then come on over here at 7, and we can go back to back. I got my podcast, the Real Talk podcast. It's going to be going on every week. We're getting into, you know, in-depth conversations. We have interviews. You know how I do. Check me out. Easiest way to find me is just go to KennyKingJr.com. It's got access to everything, all my articles, all my socials, the podcast, anything you need to see me. And then you also get all links to things you can get sales on. So,
hey, you heard the man. Follow him on all of the social media platforms. Go to his website, man. Go check out what he's doing, because he's doing some real great stuff within Raider Nation, man. I couldn't be happier to have you on today. And for everybody that's in Raider Nation, make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button. Make sure you're tapping into what I got here on the channel. Make sure you're tapping into what Big Bro got on his channel, man. And we appreciate you for pulling up today, man. I will see y'all next time. And y'all have a good night, man.
All right, brother.
Boom, boom.